Do you ever have that one show where it's like, hey, I wish this would come back? Or, hey, I wish this would come back but slightly reworked? Well, in the day and age of everything gets rebooted if it has a spine, or if not, anything is possible. And so maybe that show you want to see come back could come back. But we all know that in this day and age, the networks just want to reboot things that don't need reboots. But what about the things that do need reboots, or at least could benefit from some reboot? I know a couple shows, 10 of them to be specific, that do have this conundrum. And here's a list of the top 10 shows I want to see either get rebooted or revamped for this day and age. Now I want to make a couple notes before I get started. First of all, no one-shot pilots. So there won't be anything on here that says, dang it, this only lasted one episode, I wish this could last more than one episode. No, there will be none of that. The show has to at least last 6 episodes, so being a minimum season pickup run. Also, there's going to be some very, very, very strange choices on this list. Some of them are shows I don't even like, but I feel have potential, and if brought back, could be done really, really well. So prepare for some very strange choices, some of them that even I didn't expect when I was writing out this list. Here are the top 10 shows I want to see rebooted or revamped. Fat Albert! Yep, right away we're off to a really strange choice. I mentioned this in my review of the Fat Albert movie, that Fat Albert is basically a timeless cartoon. You could set it in any time period, to some extent, and you could make it work. The characters of Fat Albert, Rudy, Weird Harold, Mushmouth, and so forth are so flexible that you could fit them into any kind of zone. So whether you make a new version that's modern day or just a continuation of the 70s/80s show, then why not? It would be right at home, just give it a bit better animation than Filmation, although to be fair, most studios these days have better animation than Filmation did. And all the educational content out here today is mostly just kind of derivative. It treats kids like morons and tries to teach them the most simplistic and nothing lessons possible. The kind of stuff that every show teaches. Granted, Fat Albert started off doing stuff like this too, but it eventually went into things like gun violence and divorce, and what to do when your friend is a criminal. Fat Albert in its later years was never shy of teaching kids the most gruesome, down-to-earth, realistic lessons ever, and I think that was really beneficial. Shows are too scared to do that these days, so the wisdom of Fat Albert would most certainly be needed. Plus, the show always had a fun tone, if not kind of laid back. So who knows, maybe it'd be kind of like a modern-day Hey Arnold thing. The reason why this is so low on the list, though, is because there's a big caveat. What's the full name of the Fat Albert show? The original title, up until they changed it to add the Brown Hornet at the end of it later on, the original one was Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Bill Cosby is not going to have a new reputation anytime soon. I'm not going to go over what he's done. We all know what he's done. So yeah, that's kind of a problem for Fat Albert, isn't it? You can't have the name Cosby in there and have this show get picked up. It's impossible. But I do have some notes on how to fix it. Maybe remove Cosby from the title and change the last names of Bill and Russell. Sure, they would have kind of a similarity and resemblance to Fat Albert's creator, but they wouldn't be the actual characters. The last name Cosby would be all but forgotten. And instead of having Bill in those interlude segments, you could either have a different person giving all those lessons, or just don't have him. You don't have to have the live-action part at all, because that was just there to save money originally. These days, funding is ample, so you wouldn't need any of that. So as unlikely as it is, I would kind of like to see a Fat Albert continuation. However, things are only going to get weirder as we climb this list. But Ugly Martians. I hate this show. I really do. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's not funny. The animation is disgusting. But the thing is, it has a really good premise. It's about an alien overlord society, kind of like Invader Zim has, that sends out a bunch of aliens to go conquer all these planets. However, the ones for Earth are actually defects. They don't want to conquer Earth, as they say in the atrocious theme song. They rather like Earth and want to protect it from their evil overlord while trying to make it look like they're actually doing their job. That's actually a pretty cool premise. And having the human characters in there and their dynamic with the aliens, that was pretty good. The thing is with But Ugly Martians is that it has a lot of good ideas. But it can't execute any of them. That was because of the time it came out in. Around this time, cartoons were starting to take the easy way out. It was kind of made on the cheap, and it was kind of like, oh, let's just throw something out there and see if it can stick. And a lot of cartoons were starting to do that at the time. Not so much as in like 2008 or 2009, but yeah, this was not exactly a good age. Right down to the name Butt Ugly Martians. That is no good. So if this were to continue, what would I want to see? Change the name, first of all. You could just call it the Ugly Martians or something like that. Butt Ugly, though, that's not going to really catch anyone's eye. The animation, of course, would change, but that'd just be because of the times. I don't really hate the show for its animation because, well, it was way back in the 90s when computer animation was, well, let's face it, impossible. So I don't really necessarily blame them for that, although the title definitely does represent the animation quite well. And I'd like to see a little bit more refinement in the humor. The humor just was kind of non-existent in the other one. They didn't really try to tell very many jokes. And those that they did just kind of fell flat. They just didn't have the kind of potent writing. It almost seemed like, yeah, let's see if we can do this, so let's just do that. They didn't really try to commit to anything. It was one of those shows that tried to be everything and then ended up being nothing. But with a great premise and some decently interesting concept characters, it could have been something big. That is, if they decided to actually pick a direction with it. And I think if they picked a direction, and in this day and age when people actually know what they're doing, Teletoon's Wayside. My opinions on this show are mixed. On one hand, they are a horrible representation of the book, not adapting it, like, at all. But on the other hand, I enjoy it for what it is. It's not the best show, but I find it enjoyable. The thing is, though, it only lasted 2 seasons on Nickelodeon and Teletoon, and it was cancelled for unknown reasons. Nickelodeon dropped it because it was having low ratings, and it's rumored that it was dropped on Teletoon because the show wouldn't survive without its Nickelodeon sponsorship. But Season 3 and 4 were confirmed at the time until the show just eventually disappeared. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to see, but I would like to see some changes. Like I said, this isn't just revived, this is revamped. Meaning, revived with changes. Now, what I'm about to say sounds impossible, but I have evidence that it can work. If it does come back, I would like to see it a little reworked to be more like the books. Keep the Todd and Mauricia angle because that was kind of implied in the book. Keep the school's weirdness, keep Myron's mad dash for power, keep Kidswatter like that, but change some of the personalities around. Make Myron nice again, because he was actually a nice guy in the books, where in the cartoon he's just conceited. Kind of give Dana a few more layers than just, I must obey the rules at all times! Kind of make Lewis less of a dude bro kind of thing, you know, stuff like that. And of course add the rest of the students because they only gave half of the characters in Mrs. Jewell's class some spots in the show, for some reason. I know the show is made on the cheap, but come on guys! Now I know that seems impossible, but both for the Mr. Men show and George of the Jungle Season 2, they adapted their thing to be more like the source material, with George of the Jungle having it revamped in its writing style and character portrayal, although that did mess up continuity quite a bit, and the Mr. Men show dropping most of its original characters in favor for some for the books. Now neither of these shows are necessarily perfect. In fact, I already gave a negative review on George of the Jungle, and both of these changes had very mixed results. But it's worth trying for Wayside because the fandom is growing for it. Despite its detractors like the mysterious Mr. Enner, it still has a strong online presence. Who knows? Maybe now that Nickelodeon has a new CEO that actually seems to have a brain, maybe the show can get another chance. Or maybe because it's on Teletoon it'll just get swept under. Who knows? There's only one way to find out though, and that's to give it another shot. Making Fiends. This is a sad story. So there was an online pilot of this show called Making Fiends. Nickelodeon reached out to the creator and told her, hey, we want to pick up your show. So they worked hand in hand, working very diligently on making the show. Then they canceled it after 6 episodes and never aired it on Nickelodeon, dumping it on Nicktoons Network. To be fair, this is around the time when Nicktoons Network was deciding to have some original programming like Kappa Mikey or Edgar and Ellen, but that's not what Making Fiends was picked up to be. No. Making Fiends was going to be an actual Nicktoon until they just decided to throw it on Nicktoons Network. And yes, it was decently popular there, getting a lot of promotion and a lot of fan approval. But that's not what it was supposed to be, and because it wasn't on Nickelodeon, the ratings suffered in comparison. Although, next to Kappa Mikey, it was the most successful Nicktoons Network original. Still, the treatment that creator got is both unfair and mysterious. We never know why it happened. All we know is that now that Nickelodeon is just sitting on the rights, she can't do anything with Making Fiends ever again. Sure, she's working on BoJack Horseman right now, but wouldn't it be great to see her go back to Making Fiends? Give it a chance. The show wasn't the best, but it was actually pretty good. Had an interesting premise about this happy-go-lucky girl named Charlotte moving to this dingy, horrible town run by this evil little girl named Vendetta, who does nothing but create evil monsters, and everyone's scared of her except for Charlotte, and it's all about Vendetta's quest to destroy Charlotte while Charlotte has her quest to make Vendetta her friend. All while not knowing that Vendetta is actually evil. It has a really good premise, and it was pretty good. It's just sad that it only lasted 6 episodes that were really just a compilation of a bunch of shorts. I don't think Making Fiends would have been a mega hit had it lasted, but it could have been actually a pretty decent force. But this was around the time when everything that wasn't SpongeBob was starting to get murdered, so maybe it's good that it lasted this short. It didn't get her hopes up. But Making Fiends, I think, would be very well done today. Just keep it the same and bring it back. Nothing needs to change. Why do I think it would be successful? Everyone likes the kind of dark stuff these days. Yet, everyone also seems to like the light, quirky stuff. Everyone's very polarized. Making Fiends, despite seeming extremely dark, also has that kind of light, happy stuff to it. You know, because Charlotte's here. It blends both senses of humor very well. And it caters to both audiences. It's not one of those cases like Butt Ugly Martians where it tries to appeal to everyone but then appeals to no one. No, it's more just it kind of does both of these things and it does them really well. Like Wayside, it has a strong online presence and people seem to really like it. There have been a couple attempts by fans to kind of get it back on, but it was nothing more than like change.org petitions and stuff that never really went anywhere. But I could see Making Fiends making a comeback, and I would certainly like to see it happen. Teen Titans. Yes, I'm aware of the news stuff and I'll get back to that soon. So, ignoring Teen Titans Go, and ignoring the obvious fact that it left on a massive cliffhanger, I do feel that this had a decent run, but I don't think it was quite complete, like Starfire never got her own story arc. We never got to find out a lot of those mysteries like who was the second Red X, what did Slade want with them, that kind of stuff. There was a lot of things just left hanging, and even when they were planning on ending it with that actual finale before the Things Change episode, a lot of those questions still weren't answered, and then of course, yeah, we got Teen Titans Go. So it would be nice to get at least maybe one more season to fix it up. Now, at the time of recording this, it has been announced that there will be a revival, a continuation, I don't know what it is. But what I want to see from it is the answers to all those questions we never got. Again, who is Red X? What's up with Slade? That kind of stuff. Starfire getting a bit more of a story arc, because everyone except for her got one. I would also like to see a bit more character exploration. We've already seen a lot of interactions with like Robin and Starfire, with Beast Boy and Raven, but I'd like to see some more of things that we don't get to see too much, like, I don't know, Cyborg and Starfire, Robin and Beast Boy, or stuff like that. Stuff that we don't get to see too much, just kind of shake up the formula a bit. Finding out a bit more about their backstories. Just kind of really go all out with it. Wrap up all those loose ends and make sure you actually have all the loose ends wrapped up before you prepare to end it off. That would be nice. So yeah, there's, assuming that it's all correct, going to be a revival of this. Just like I want on this list. And that's why it's on here. This is the only one on this list that's actually confirmed, and by the time I was scripting this, I didn't know this was happening. So yeah, I found this out like actually a couple days before I recorded this. So yeah, you can't blame me for... We all want it, I'm just saying it. But this isn't the only time the Cartoon Network's going to show up on this list. In fact, they're already here, and there's going to be more. In fact, the next one is Cartoon Network. Number 5. Robotomy. Sure enough, there was a show that you probably have never heard of on this list, and it won't be the last. Robotomy is the shortest lasting Cartoon Network cartoon, lasting only 10 episodes in just a couple months. This show was actually really good. It's about a world of robots, and it's just horrible. It's just everything is out to get you and out to kill you. It's as if Bender controlled it all. Everyone lies, everyone cheats, everyone steals, everyone just beats the crud out of each other. It's just one giant robot apocalypse society that all the robots just seem to love. Critics at the time called it too violent and not okay for kids, because it wasn't okay for kids. It was kind of like what Invader Zim was. It was more aimed for early to mid-teens and even some adults. And like Invader Zim, it had a demented sense of humor. And like Invader Zim, it got canned way too early. However, unlike Zim, Robotomy didn't last long enough to get a cult following. And these days, it's entirely forgotten. But I never forgot. I never did. I was a fan of the show when it first came out, and I was surprised to see it didn't catch on. To be fair, it did come out around the time of Secret Mountain Fort Awesome and The Problem Solver, so Cartoon Network just wasn't doing so well with things that weren't Gumball, Regular Show, or Adventure Time. If you weren't one of those three shows, no one cared about you, because more often than not, you were terrible. And unfortunately, Robotomy got lumped into that when people saw just how dark and weird it looked. But I could definitely see this coming back as a Netflix revival thing. There are so many things you could do with this premise. Like I've said in my TV talks in the past, loose, simple premises usually make for some of the best, most expansive shows. Because when you're not held down by a bunch of rules, and not strictly in one location, you can do whatever you want, for the most part, as long as it stays in character. And with a premise like a robot apocalypse society, there's no telling what could happen. Only 10 episodes came out, like I said, and, well, this thing could seemingly go on for a lot more. There's just so many more stories to tell. We get to see all these new characters get explored. We get to see the old ones actually get some more development. Maybe some more looks at how this robot society functions. Seeing their backstories and how all these robots decided to start hating each other and just trying to kill each other. There's just so much you could do with the premise of Robotomy, and yet nothing happened with it because Cartoon Network just saw the mediocre reception and bad ratings and said, oh, yep, can't do this. And then just threw it away. What a shame, too. It seemed like the creator really, really wanted to keep going with this. But unfortunately, none of that happened. It had a lot of really good potential. But, unfortunately, it wasn't able to be realized. But there's still another chance. If the show ever did get revived, you'd better believe I'd be right there in the front lines checking out all of it. And this isn't the only Cartoon Network show about robots that's on this list. Whatever happened to Robot Jones? I gave a TV Talks review of this where I gave just a glowing positive review of it, and I'm going to stand by that here. Robot Jones is the same thing as Robotomy. Kind of got swept under the rug when it came out, has a very interesting art style, was meant for more older demographics than Cartoon Network was used to, and of course just got unfairly treated and thrown away. Although Robot Jones has the worst treatment of a cartoon I've ever seen. Anyone who tells me Time Squad and Sheep in the Big City got it bad, you haven't heard the story of whatever happened to Robot Jones. I go into more detail in my review of it, but in short, here is what happened. The creator wanted to make a show about pirates. The network said they didn't like pirates, so he decided to make it about a robot, actually voiced by a computer. The network would never stop breathing down his neck, changing everything and anything that they could. Nothing was safe, because they wanted to make it more marketable and safe for kids and everything, while he wanted to make it, again, more for the slightly older teen demographic. It even got to the point where they forced the creator to recast the role of Robot Jones, rewrote a bunch of his scripts and everything, and by that time he was just so fed up that he didn't care and just left. The creator has gone on to say that he wished he could have done more with it because, again, like I've said, it has a loose premise and you can do basically anything with it. And with Robot Jones, he doesn't necessarily need to be in middle school. You could have him kind of grow up, learn about high school, see him in his day-to-day life as an adult or something. Robot Jones could be one of those shows where you could get infinite amount of episodes for, because every episode involves Robot Jones looking at some kind of human phenomenon, and then observing said phenomenon and writing hypothesis on said phenomenon. That's not just a SpongeBob reference, that's actually what it's about. What we got was definitely good, but what we got was extremely few and far between. A lot of those episodes are hard to find now, especially with the original voice. And now in this day and age of not needing a network to rely on and just going on like Netflix or Hulu, they could really push the envelope, maybe even make it for adults like it actually was kind of supposed to be. Because let's face it, the creator definitely writes better for adults, as you can see in the earlier ones where it's a lot more adult, as in the second season it's a lot more kiddish. Thank you, Cartoon Network, for censoring creativity. As unlikely as it is, I would definitely like to see whatever happened to Robot Jones make some kind of continuation. There are many more stories to tell and many more things to see Robot do. We can't just leave him at 13, people. Now here we get to the top 3. These are the ones where if there was an actual campaign to get it going, I would full-heartedly join that campaign. And I'm not talking about one of those simple change.org things. I mean, like, actual grounded comeback motivation. And for number 3, it is actually entirely possible. Symbionic Titan, a show I didn't watch when it came out, but I watched it later on and was amazed that this didn't last. Created by Genndy Tartakovsky, I hope I'm saying that right, the creator of Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab, and of course Hotel Transylvania. It was a plot-heavy action show that Cartoon Network dumped for unknown reasons. Some people say it was because they couldn't get a toy line, some people say it was because of licensing issues, but the point is it got cut too early and the story was left unfinished. Not only that, but there were 10 more episodes written and ready to be made that were heralded to be even better than the ones we got, that would either wrap up the story or bring in new stuff to help make the show even more interesting, and Cartoon Network didn't go for it. And Cartoon Network themselves wrote it off in their taxes as a financial failure, meaning that they got their money back from the US government, and in exchange this show can never air again. However, as we've seen with some other stuff, that can be undone. Symbionic Titan was a very overshadowed show with a lot of effort in it, and I would love to see it continue. It had a lot going for it, and the story is not done. Come on, let it keep going. The action was great, the story was great, the animation was great. Really, I don't want to say much about it because I would encourage you guys to go out and see it. And there actually is kind of a fan movement to get Symbionic Titan back. It hasn't gotten substantial ground yet, but it's been going on since the show's disappeared, and it's only been growing as time goes on. Just a little thought. Dave the Barbarian, my favorite show of all time, and it's only number 2. So why Dave the Barbarian just at number 2? Well, just you wait till you see number 1. Number 1 will surprise you. Hashtag BuzzFeed! Nah, I'm kidding. But really, number 1 actually even surprised me when I was making it. So Dave the Barbarian, again, loose premise show, could go on forever. Doug Langdale, the guy who made this, is a genius. Everything he writes turns to gold, basically. Dave the Barbarian is one of the most clever, funny, and original shows I've seen. Sure, it's a little similar to things like the Roman Holidays or even the Flintstones, but it's kind of like that meeting a J. Ward production. It has a similar kind of humor as Rocky and Bullwinkle, a similar premise as the Roman Holidays, and characters that are just, well, they're a little tropish, but that's the point. They're there to make fun of the tropes. Every episode is hilarious, even some of the weaker ones, like the ones I'm not too big on, like Dog of Titans. Those are still hilarious. The show is just constant knee-slapping, gut-busting hilarity. And just overall off-the-wall creativity with great songs, fun animation, amazing voice acting. And speaking of the voice acting, those voice actors and actresses don't do very much these days, except for Kevin Michael Richardson and Tress MacNeille. Everyone else like Paul Rugg, Danny Cooksey, Richard Stephen Hortz, I don't know. Man, this is not my day for last names. Anyways, they're all open right now. And I'm sure that especially Danny Cooksey, the title character, would love to be back and doing this. I could easily see this as a Netflix revival for many reasons. Dave the Barbarian, again, still has a strong online presence. It's a kind of thing where it's just timeless humor. It doesn't matter if it came out in 2004 or if it came out in 2018. It would still have the same kind of impact. It's something we don't see a lot of these days, because a lot of new cartoons are either the stupid buddy-buddy bro comedy stuff, dark, gritty storyline things, or some kind of Adventure Time knockoff. We don't see the J. Ward fast-paced, talking, non-stop ridiculousness cartoon anymore. I mean, sure, those buddy bro things kind of try to be ridiculous, but that's more just like butt and dude kind of stuff. Nothing that just takes time to be as wacky and old-fashioned comedy as possible. Something like Dave the Barbarian is sorely needed for this day and age. And plus, it's a cheap show, so why not kind of bring it back? Disney could really do something with this. They could satisfy all those fans and the creator who were disappointed that it got axed for seemingly no reason and just left in limbo. Did someone say limbo? And they could cash in on that nostalgia market, which now that the 90s nostalgia is ending and those 2000s kids are growing up, they're going to start wanting to get back to their childhood too. So, why not cash in on that? You already own the license, it's cheap to make, and of course it would reignite that, hey, I remember that show, yeah, let's watch it! That happens. Sometimes obscure things getting rebooted is actually better than more popular things. Because if it's more popular, then everyone's gonna watch it and then judge it super, super harshly as to whether or not it's a good continuation or a good representation of what it used to be. However, if it's more obscure, people will be more easier on it, saying, yeah, okay, well, at least it's not such a big widespread thing. Also, if it's more obscure, it'll go more into the subconscious of the viewers, kind of reigniting an old childhood memory. And then once that gets ignited, they'll be more likely to have rose-colored glasses on, and then overlook any issues that the first couple episodes might have. And then bang, you likely got a hit on your hands. Don't tell me I'm crazy, that's how it works, usually. I don't know. Maybe if you rebooted some obscure things, then maybe we could find out, huh? But now we get to number one that even surprised me. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this show. I actually recently made a review of it, and I gave it a review, saying that it was alright for what it was, but it could have been so much better. Strap in, because this is going to be a long one. My number one choice for a cartoon that should be either revived or retooled is League of Super Evil. Again, I thought this show was just okay, but it could have been so much better. It's about a bunch of villains who are really bad at being bad, and that's just the premise. They're just failing at being complete evil people, and are more just rude and annoying. That sounds brilliant! But they wasted it. Because Canada cartoons don't really have the best quality control, so they kind of have a bad stigma of just kind of being slapdash first draft cartoons. League of Super Evil is no different. I've seen the entire first and second season, and about half of the third, and I can only say that I liked 3 episodes from beginning to end. 2 of them are sister episodes. The only ones I liked legitimately were Justice Jean, Table for 4, and 10. Those episodes being about the League of Super Evil getting a rival who is a kind of neighborhood security guard, and he's just as rude and annoying as they are. While he's trying to be a superhero, they're trying to be supervillains, and they're both really ineffectual, so it's about their war. Table for 4 is about the League of Super Evil trying to get a dinner table at Villain's, the most exclusive restaurant for villains, and it's just about their wacky hijinks getting in. And then 10 is about them getting a pizza that's going to be there in 10 minutes or it's free, and it's all about them trying to delay the delivery guy and get the free pizza. Why are these 3 the only ones out of about 30 other episodes that I actually liked? Because these are the only ones that went all out with the premise. Every other episode, Eye Destruct, School Days, Red Menacing, Hard-Boiled, Etched in Stone, Mwahaha, and so many more. Just play it safe. They don't try to do anything big. It's all just kind of safe, controlled, nothing comedy. Like I mentioned in the review, there's an episode where they get new henchbots, and the only joke throughout the entire episode they tell is that all they need is just constant upgrades to make these things work. That's the one joke. But then I forgot to mention how there's just episodes that are kind of all over the place, like Dr. Strong Frog, where Dr. Frog tries to make himself really, really strong instead of really, really smart. Now, it starts off with him being kind of big and dopey and stuff, but then they don't do that until halfway through the episode, so there's not much time to do it, and he gets fixed pretty quickly, so he's only big and dumb for about 3 minutes. And the plot just kind of jumps around, not telling jokes at all. I think the only joke they had is how easy the self-destruct system would be to turn off, which was funny at first until they just dragged it out. Then there's episodes that have great premises and then they waste them, like in Justice Jean. Justice Jean is the main antagonist for League of Super Evil, and yes, he was debuted in that Justice Jean episode. Who would have guessed? Justice Jean is this kind of lame, stupid guy who's kind of Patrick Warburton-y, and I think if it was made in America, he would have played him, because he looks and sounds a lot like him. Anyways, he's constantly going around from a bunch of jobs that coincidentally coincide with what the League of Super Evil is trying to do that week. And it's kind of, they both fail in the end, so like no one really wins in the end, but Jean usually gets it bad. So in this episode, Jean is at the end of his rope and decides to become part of the League of Super Evil. So if he can't be Justice Jean, he'll be Injustice Jean. That sounds great. That sounds like a great kind of subversion of the usual formula. But what do they do with it? They do the same thing again. They tell one joke. Jean doesn't know what he's doing. But they do it in a way that's not even original to his character. They basically make him act like a slightly dumber version of Red Menace. Simply duplicating characters does not equal comedy. The premise is great, and I know that these writers can do great things, because they've made 3 really, really good episodes. And I mean it, those 3 are actually really good. I thoroughly enjoyed them and would watch them again. 8 out of 10 would watch again. But those other ones just don't hit the mark, and it's even sadder when they have great ideas but can't execute them because Again, kind of like with what Butt Ugly Martians tries to do, it tries to do everything, but then ends up doing nothing. The humor in League of Super Evil is way too safe and way too generic. Canadian cartoons have a very samey kind of style of humor. I can't really describe it, but it's the kind of Johnny Test style of humor, where it's just kind of safe, bland, doesn't really have a kind of style. It's more just kind of off-putting. I guess that's its style. And it's sad to see something as great of a concept as League of Super Evil fall into this. So where does the whole reboot thing come into this? I would love to see the creators get another chance with this. I think if they made more episodes like 10, Injustice Gene, and Table for 4, they could really go. I think giving them a little bit more time to make the scripts, and maybe hiring a little bit more all-out writers could really help them here. If they really honed in their premise and really worked on their craft, they could have something great. But I have some ideas, not just generic notes. I have actually written out a list of ideas to help make a revival of League of Super Evil turn out well. The only mandatory one here is to make it, funny. Don't hold back. But I've already gone through that enough. 2, give Doomageddon more to do. Doomageddon is an entirely pointless character. Let me go over the characters again. There's Voltar, the tiny red guy, who's all about being the evil leader of the League of Super Evil! And he is kind of the most lame villain ever. All he does is, instead of trying to take over the world, he starts the great yogurt souring of last summer. That kind of stuff. Selling lemonade made out of turnips, replacing piñatas with cheese bombs, just kind of nuisance stuff. There's Red Menace, the big muscly guy who's kind of like Dave from Dave the Barbarian. Big, strong, kind, dependable, but isn't supposed to be that. He's supposed to be bloodthirsty and ruthless. And every time he tries, he wimps out. Then there's Dr. Frog, who I still think is the best character. Here's an insane mad scientist who's always got such terrible bad luck and wants to destroy everything! And then there's Doomageddon, who's just the dog. Over half the episodes I've seen, Doomageddon doesn't do anything. He just kind of shows up for 1 or 2 scenes. One of the things I think that causes Doomageddon to not be able to do anything is that he doesn't talk. Yes, he's a dog, but he's as described in the earlier episodes, Hellhound, although they changed that to Doomhound later because I guess you can't say hell on kids' TV. Well, maybe you can in Canada, but not on Cartoon Network. So, why not give him a voice? Because Doomageddon clearly has a personality. He's kind of the lazy one. He's the most self-aware that this is stupid. Why not give him a voice to say that? Then maybe his conflicts with Dr. Frog would actually be funny, instead of him just constantly trying to eat him. Third idea is have a bit more interaction with the characters. Sure, Voltar is good and all, but he seems to get a lot of the spotlight. About half of them I've seen are about Voltar. And even when he's not the star, he's like the secondary star. Give Dr. Frog or Red Menace or, again, Doomageddon some roles. And also I want to see a bit more of their interactions. How did these people react to each other? I mean, I assume they're friend-ish, but they don't interact on a personal level enough to know whether or not they're actually friend-ish. Even with Doomageddon and Dr. Frog not getting along, I don't know. Is Doomageddon just playing with him? Does Dr. Frog actually hate Doomageddon? Is he scared of him? Like, what's going on? Now, this one is the most outlandish of them all, but it can work. Make it for adults. I mean, yeah, it'd be fine as a kid's show, but imagine if League of Super Evil was an adult cartoon. Hear me out on this. With the concept of a group of villains, that's good for kids, but because they're evil, you gotta have some kind of restriction. But if you're an adult cartoon about villains, then those limits are gone. Now, don't go full-out TVMA stuff, I'm not necessarily saying that, but with an adult cartoon, you can definitely push the limits a bit more. Have Dr. Frog really be insane and maybe, torture some animals for experiments or something. You could have Voltar's megalomania really go up to the point where he thinks he's God or something. Doomageddon could have a lot of fourth wall jokes. You could kind of keep Red Menace the same, but the kind of environment would be different. The jokes would have no restriction on them. You could go as far as you want. Maybe that's one of the things that kept League of Super Evil back, is because they were afraid that it was a kid's show, and of course, Canadian stuff, you're either really, really far out there, or you're really, really protective. And of course, they kind of try to do the middle ground, sort of. But if it was more for adults, you wouldn't have to worry about that. You could do just about anything. There'd be no worry about holding back. Like I said, not TVMA adult stuff, but I don't know, maybe like TV-14 or something, whatever the creators would really feel like. Kind of give it a more Invader Zim, more, I hate to say it, Rick and Morty kind of style of thing. I mean, it's not a far reach. The elements are there. Dr. Frog would fit perfectly in a kind of world like that. And with a slight bit of rework, Doomageddon and Voltar would too. And then by extension, Red Menace kind of fits just about anywhere because he's just kind of that simple of a character. The show for me is just kind of a guilty pleasure because I like watching it and imagining what could have been. But for what we got, it was just kind of okay. But the hurting part is that it could have been great. It could have been a lot of great stuff going on here. But it just didn't do that. I doubt League of Super Evil will ever come back because this show is far from popular. But hey, if they took my ideas and made a reboot, I wouldn't mind. I'd watch it. So, those are my top 10 cartoons that I'd want to see come back. What'd you think of my ideas? Let me know below. Also, what ones would you want to see get revived? Again, comment below, let me know. I'll see you guys next time.
Good night, everybody.